everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Heart to Heart, the podcast where we talk about building relationships, learning to communicate, and navigating the ups and downs of life's most important ones.
We are your hosts, Angel, Micha, Sam, and Kath. And we're here to dive deep into friendships, family dynamics, and yes, romantic relationships too. This episode is all about why relationships matter, how to communicate better, and the real challenges we face along the way.
So, grab your coffee, get comfy, and let's have an honest chat about the people who makes our lives interesting or complicated depending on the day.
Plus, we've got listener stories, some personal tea to spill, and practical advice you can actually use. Spoiler alert, it's not always as easy as rom-coms make it look.
Not at all. But hey, if we can laugh through the awkwardness, we're already winning.
Exactly. So, what are you waiting for? Grab your coffee, tea, or whatever makes you feel cozy, and let's dive into today's heart to heart. Okay, let's start big. Why do relationships matter so much? Like, what's the big deal?
Honestly, relationships are what keep us human. Friends teach us how to trust, family gives us roots, and romantic partners, ooh, that's our patience.
Sam's already spilling the tea, but she's right. Relationships makes life meaningful. They're the reason why we grow, learn, and sometimes cry at 2 a.m. while eating ice cream.
That's true.
Right? I had a moment like that. Once, I assumed someone I knew was upset. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Months later, I exploded like a volcano over something small. I learned the hard way. So, we speak up before you erupt.
Ah, I've done that too. It's like, oh, you should have known, but no one can read minds, especially
Yeah.
when you don't communicate how you're feeling.
Exactly. Those moments of miscommunication that can snowball into something huge. But we've all been there. The real challenge is learning to communicate in ways that to prevent those explosions from happening.
For sure. But relationships aren't all smooth sailing. They're messy, complicated, and sometimes they make you question your life choices. Like, what am I even doing this?
Honestly, that's the truth. Relationships are full of highs and lows, but they teach us a lot about ourselves and others.
Yeah, and when we communicate well, even those messy parts can be worked through. That's why communication is a key in any relationship, typically. It's the bridge that keeps all those connections alive.
And science backs this up. Did you know that relationships can actually improve your health and help you live longer?
For real, but beyond the health benefits, it's about feeling connected. Nobody wants to go through life alone.
And that's why communication is key. It's the bridge that keeps these connections alive.
So, let's talk about how we communicate. Because, let's be real, it's one thing to be in a relationship and another thing to know how to communicate in a relationship.
Exactly. Communications can be the difference between a relationship that thrives and the one that falls apart. I and not just talking. It's also about
I can totally agree. I once got into this huge argument with my partner because I thought they were ignoring me. Turns out they were really just into video games and didn't notice I was upset. I assumed they didn't care, and that's when the drama started.
Oh, I've been there. Assumptions will kill you. My friend and I once had a huge falling apart because I misunderstood something that she said in a text. I thought she was mad at me, but she was just really busy. So I thought a simple phone call could clear those things up.
I think we all tend to jump conclusions sometimes. It's like your brain goes to worst case scenario, but all you really need is a few kind words to clear things up.
And here's the thing. Sometimes you don't even realize how we're communicating. Like when you send a text and it seems fine to you, but the other person it sounds cold or distant. That's the challenge with digital communication. It lacks tone.
Yeah, and if you're in a romantic relationship, that's the number one rule. Don't start a serious conversation through text. Trust me, you'll regret it.
I learned that the hard way. Texting is fine for quick stuff, but when it comes to feelings, face to face or at least a phone call is way better. That way, you get to read the other person's reaction, tone, and expressions. Things you can't get from a thumbs up emojis.
Well, alright, now let's get into the skills. So, what makes someone a great communicator?
For me, it's listening.
Oh.
And I mean, really listening. Not just nodding while you're planning your response.
Totally. And showing empathy is huge. Like, if a friend is venting, don't say, oh, that's nothing. Instead, try, wow, that sounds really tough. How can I help?
And of course, clarity. People say what you mean. I once told someone I was fine, but my face clearly said I'm ready to fight. Mixed signals never help.
Oh, that's so you, Sam. And of course, the non-verbal communication is just as important. If you're rolling your eyes while saying, I'm listening, guess what? You're not.
Okay. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about friendships. These are the relationships that really test your patience sometimes. Yeah, they are the ones that also have your back when you need it the most.
Angel, we're innocent.
Oh,
We
for
don't know
sure.
anything.
Yeah, for sure. My best friend and I once canceled plans at the last minute because she said, sorry, I can come. My couch is calling my name. And I was like, is that code for I don't want to go out? Like,
I think we've all had that. Sometimes friends are just in their cozy zones and
Yeah.
need that time to recharge. But I get it. It's hard to not take it personally.
Totally. I had a friend who always canceled because something came up, and after a while, I started feeling like I was just a backup plan. But I realized that we were in different places in life, and it wasn't personal. She was just going through stuff.
That's really a good point, Sam. Friendships evolve, and sometimes you need to give each other the space to grow. As long as you're there for each other when it counts, that's what matters. Friendships are supposed to be the easy one, right?
yeah.
But sometimes we take them for granted.
Exactly. I once went with months without checking in with a friend and
That's so mean.
thinking, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought they will be fine. It turns out They were waiting for me for months.
That's so real. Friendships need maintenance because they're high maintenance. I'm just joking. Just like any relationship, even a quick "Hey, how are you?" can make a huge difference.
That's so real. One thing to not forget is boundaries. A real friend respects them and doesn't take advantage of it.
As they say, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the wood.
Big
Stop on
words.
it. Let's talk about family now. They're the ones that really know how to push your buttons, usually on purpose.
Oh, 100%. I remember my siblings and I fight about the most random stuff. Like who gets to sit in front of the couch. I'm like, we're all adults. Why are we still arguing about this?
Same here. With my family, we're constantly arguing over what movie to watch, and it's always a debate. But it's kind of funny, you know. Even when we're annoyed with each other, we know that we'll always end up in the same room cracking jokes about the silly things we fought over.
Oh, I love that. Family is so complicated, but at the end of the day, they are your ride or die people. I've had moments where I thought I was mad, so mad at my family, but in the end, we're talked it through and of course found common grounds.
Oh, based on that, we know that family relationships are trickier because there's so much history involved.
True. And don't get me started about generational gaps. My parents and I have a very different ways of handling conflicts.
Same. But I've learned that settling boundaries doesn't mean you love them endless. It just means you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing, okay?
Yeah, and patient helps. Family dynamics takes time to evolve, but it's worth it.
And according to George Bernard Shaw, a happy family is but an earlier heaven.
So, okay, Sam, this is your spotlight. Give us the tea on romantic relationships.
Oh boy. Now for the most juicy part. Romantic relationships. Let's be real. They're a roller coaster. Exciting, terrifying, and sometimes makes you question your life choices.
But worth it, right?
Oh, for sure. Romantic relationships are full of surprises. Some good, some not so good.
And sometimes you think you're having a peaceful day, and then your partner says something that makes you feel like you're about to launch in a 5-hour argument. Like, come on.
True, that's true.
Yup. Happened to me the other day. I had this huge panic attack when my partner didn't
Oh my
text me back in 10 minutes. So OA, but I was like, oh no, what did I do wrong? Turns out they were just stuck in a meeting.
Oh my god.
Totally. One thing I've learned is that communication is everything. My worst fight with a partner happened because we avoided talking about what actually mattered.
Same here. It's so tempting to sweep things under the rug, but that rug gets so bumpy real fast.
And compromise is huge. It's not about one person will always give in, but it's about meeting at the middle.
You
Yeah.
get that, guy?
Yeah.
And then also learn to laugh together. Humor can diffuse even the worst arguments.
Yeah, I think we've all been through overthinking at some point. The waiting for the text drama is so real. And in the end, communication clears everything up.
Exactly. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies in romantic relationships.
Yeah.
But when you talk, when you really listen, you learn and together.
Yeah.
Agree.
Alright. Let's talk about something a little heavier.
What's that?
I'm kinda scared.
What happens when relationship hit a wall?
Oh.
How do you overcome the barriers?
Ooh, like when your best friend becomes distant and you have no idea why.
Or when a family drama gets so bad, it feels like you're living in a soap opera.
Or when your partner and you are stuck in a we need to talk phase and never really talk.
Exactly. These barriers are tough, but they are not impossible to overcome. What's your go-to strategy?
For me, my step one will be figure out what's actually going on. Since once my best friend was mad at me because she stopped texting. Turns out she was just swamped with work and needed some space, which I didn't know.
Same here. Misunderstandings are so common.
Yeah.
Sometimes what feels like a rejection is just someone dealing with their own stuff.
So
Yeah.
true. And assuming the worst can create a problem when there isn't one. That's why I always say ask before you act.
Another biggie though is trust. Once trust is broken, it's very hard to fix. But it's not impossible. It just takes time, effort, and especially consistency. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if a friend breaks a promise, they can't just say sorry
Yeah.
and expect things to go back to normal. They need to show that they're serious and want to rebuild that trust.
And the last one, of course, the forgiveness.
Mm.
And forgiveness plays a big role too. Holding grudges only hurts you in the long run.
That's true.
Been there. But of course, boundaries are a lifesavers. My partner and I once had a huge fight because I felt suffocated by constant text. I mean, like, who wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
We sat down and agreed to give each other space during the day. Definitely, it was a game changer.
So boundaries aren't just for romantic relationships.
Yeah.
I had to set one with my mother. You know, she kept calling me at school. She didn't realize it. It was stressing me out, but I explained it to her, and eventually, it became smooth.
Exactly. Boundaries are about protecting the relationship, not pushing people away.
And sometimes you need to outside help. There's no shame in talking to a therapist or a counselor. They can give you a tools to handle tough situations.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I once did a couples therapy and it was an eye-opening. Even if it was awkward in the first, it was totally worth it.
That's true. So, therapy isn't just for when things are falling apart. It can also help you strengthen your already good relationship.
Now, we've been talking a lot about relationships, but let's take a moment and hear from our listeners.
Yeah. So, are you ready for the first one?
Of course.
Yeah.
So, this one comes from a listener who reconnected with a childhood friend after years of silence. They hadn't spoken in so long, but one day this listener decided to reach out. They sent a simple text. Hey, I miss you. How have you been? And the text led into a heart-to-heart conversation. Both of them realized that they had taken them different directions, but the friendship was still there. They laughed about all the silly memories and decided to make plans to catch up. The small act of vulnerability turned out to be the start of a beautiful reconnection.
Oh, that's amazing. It's such a powerful reminder that sometimes just reaching out and being vulnerable is all it takes to rekindle a relationship.
That's right. So let's hear from our another listener.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
You ready for this one?
Of course, of course.
Okay. This next story comes from a listener who was struggling with a strained relationship with their sibling. For years, there was tension between them because of a misunderstanding. But they never really talked about it. One day, they both decided to sit down and lay it all out. They realized they were both carrying resentment from things that had happened years ago, and none of it was properly addressed. After a long, emotional conversation, they were able to forgive each other and start fresh. It wasn't an easy conversation, but it was definitely worth it.
That's a beautiful story, Mika. It shows that family doesn't have to be perfect, but you just have to show up and be honest and, of course, listen to each other.
Yeah, that's
I agree to that.
yeah.
Me too.
I can
Same.
relate to it. So, for this last story, it is from a listener who was in a romantic relationship. They hit a rough patch and they were constantly fighting. It seems like nothing was going through. They decided to try couples therapy, thinking it might be their last shot. To their surprise, it didn't just fix their problems, it made their relationship even stronger. They learned how to communicate more openly, express their needs without fear of judgment. They were able to resolve old issues and move forward with a renewed sense of love and understanding.
Oh, therapy can be so helpful.
Yeah.
Like, remember the one I told you earlier?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a way to put everything on the table and work through together. It's not just for when things are bad. It can help you strengthen the relationship too.
Yeah. What a journey today. We've talked about the importance of relationships, how to communicate better, and how to break down barriers to make those relationships even stronger.
So, our biggest takeaway is relationships are messy but definitely worth it. And they start with communication. So, communication is really the everything in a relationship.
And remember, every connection in two-way street relationships are a work in progress. It's okay to mess up as long as you keep learning, growing, and laughing together.
So that's all. Thank you for joining us today on Heart to Heart. We hope you've enjoyed hearing our stories. And of course, don't forget to share your own. Drop us a comment or message us your thoughts on what you've learned about relationships.
See
you next time.
Bye!